Good afternoon and welcome to the Caregiver Teleconnection. My name is Glenda Rogers and I'm going to be your facilitator for today's session with Dr. Jamie Huysman. He's going to be talking to us about caregiving is not a cookie cutter process, probably cutter process. Anyway, it's not all the same. So I'm so glad Dr. Jamie's with us. Let me tell you just a little bit about him before we get started. Dr. Jamie Huysman is a trauma-certified psychologist and licensed clinical social worker. He built his innovative healthcare career on the premise that necessity is the mother of invention. His belief that the resilience of the human spirit and collaboration are key to our country's health future is the core of his philosophy. He is a fierce advocate of patient-centered healthcare and a workforce in touch with their own wellness. He has almost 30 years of medical and behavioral health experience in nonprofit and for-profit corporate leadership roles. Today, he works in provider relations and governmental affairs for WellMed Medical Management, a San Antonio-based physician-owned primary clinic organization, and he serves as WellMed's Chief Compassion Officer. Dr. Jamie, welcome to the session.
Thank you, Glenda. So, technologically, us psychologists always have a challenge, and I just had a blip on my Zoom. Can you still see my presentation?
Yes, absolutely.
Good. So if you're a caregiver, that's exactly what you need to do in life, is not assume anything. I've done presentations before where actually I've learned from this, and I think life is a learning process. There's nothing like caregiving to create learning opportunities, right? The first thing we need to understand is have grace and compassion for ourselves. So I'm not technologically sort of expert. And therefore, when I saw the blip, I said, let me ask. Many times, Glenda, we do this presentation, and I always suggest to everybody first to get a book. And the book is called The Four Agreements, which is interesting. I'm digressing a bit from our presentation. But if you're a caregiver, that's also, if I don't mention in this presentation, a great book. The Four Agreements are be impeccable with your word. Don't assume anything. Don't take anything personal, which is what this presentation is more about. And just do your best, okay? Which means don't let perfection be the enemy of good, right? We tend as caregivers to become perfectionistic. It's our mom, dad, brother, cousin, and we're the hero and we put the cape on. But no, just do your best. So I say that to you that everything's a learning lesson, even what I just said. I can assume. But I want to thank you, Glenda, Minerva, WellMed, and like everybody who's attending, because if you're here, you're right, Glenda. Everybody knows it's not a cookie cut process. But I'm not sure everybody does understand that there are people, loved ones, carry that have a growth mindset or self-awareness, or can look inside, or can meet ourselves as caregivers halfway. Okay, if you're a professional or a family caregiver, that's the definition of a strong, healthy relationship, is when two people work 50-50. Now, in caregiving, sometimes that's not an option, right? We have neurological challenges. People may, be in several stages of neurological challenges, and 50-50 takes on a new dimension. But for the most part, we need to ask the world to show up 50%, and then we need to. But sometimes, understanding a high conflict caregiving situation, it's not like that. The other party doesn't understand that this is a 50-50 endeavor. The other party, and we'll get into it, may be more clinically challenged and have a lot more issues going on, that has you as a caregiver walking on eggshells. So my first question is to make sure you're in the right workshop here. Okay, a high conflict situation, okay, where caregiving is not a cookie cut situation, is a situation where you don't feel really safe. Okay, maybe you feel bad or about the communication, or the two of you can't communicate at all. And neurologically, again, this is notwithstanding neurological issues and decompensation around Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, the Lewy body, that type of thing. It's really something as a caregiver, that the communication isn't there. Okay, if you're in a high conflict sort of situation, you're probably going to feel somewhat exploited, even neglected, not just only by the caree, but maybe by family around you, long distance caregiving too. We'll get into that one as well. So remember, you're in the right workshop if you feel like you've lost yourself. Now that is interesting. When I was doing this presentation, because I wrote a book called Take Your Oxygen First, it was about how caregivers lose themselves. And we don't take care of ourselves. And often we do that to the peril of our own health and our own wellness. So many times you don't need a high conflict resolution to feel lost as a caregiver. But you're in the right workshop here if you also feel like the person you're working with belittles you, shames you, doesn't really understand, doesn't have empathy, if you will, to understand who you are, what you're going through, okay, what you're sacrificing maybe. You're in the right, obviously, workshop if you feel bullied or manipulated or controlled by the person. Okay. Now, being in a dysfunctional relationship, I almost didn't hesitate to put that down because many of us may come from a dysfunctional family. And without getting proper therapy or understanding what I'm about to talk to you about, it's pretty dysfunctional. And somehow, if you feel that way in your relationship with your loved one, you probably are in that type of relationship, that you're in the right place here. And finally, if you're walking on eggshells, it's probably also with a loved one that there's an episodic anger outburst, that you're living sometimes under a cloud of rage, where the person doesn't have that 50-50 kind of self-reflection, that 50-50, maybe I did something in this process I can learn from, and they just break out in rage and scream and insult you. So I'd like to see, I get you engaged. I don't know how many people are tech savvy, but there's emojis there somehow. And if those things that I just mentioned may be happening in the relationship you have with a loved one, or with clinically, let's say, a client or a colleague, give me a thumbs up or tell me from an emoji, maybe if you're in the right spot. Now I'm going to hit you technologically. But if you don't know how to do it, don't worry. I'm not going to sit here and do a one-on-one discussion with you. But let me just tell you that most people that tuned in here, I'm probably, quote unquote, preaching to the choir, because you really understand by the description of this workshop that you probably are in a very difficult situation with the person you're caring for. So let's talk about a minute about why, or who tuned in today, but really the why we tuned in today. And the reason why I'm asking you this and peeling the onion with you is that many of us as caregivers, and I'm guilty of this because I wrote the book called Take Your Oxygen First, is thinking that the world is about codependency, that our self-esteem comes from people, places, and things. That our self-esteem comes from sacrificing ourselves, right, for others so that they like us. Well, let's rework that. Your why is really internal motivation you should develop. It means like, I'm here because internal motivation is better than external. It's not going to be the attaboy or attagirl. It's going to be finding our way inside that acts as a river of life, basically. Okay. It doesn't run dry. That's the beauty of the internal motivation, that if you have purpose and a dream and aspirations, chances are you have internal sort of motivation. Now, if you don't, that's okay. I'm going to tell you how to get it. But let's use today, number one, first things first, is that your loved one, if you did feel you're on walking on eggshells and you're in somewhat of a high conflict situation, then I'm going to assume, as a clinician and as a person that works with high conflict behavior, that the person is probably telling you that you're wrong, that you did something, that all the time, I'm saying all the time, they're making you feel guilty, that they're probably living in your head. So I'm going to give you absolution. You're almost in the confessional here. I'm not a priest or preacher or rabbi or imam, but I don't want you to feel guilty for your loved one's projections. Number one, I want to relieve you of that. I want you to start looking at yourself with less anger, less resentment, more compassion, more realizing it's not your fault, that this episodic outburst that you're getting, that this lack of appreciation you're getting, that this, I didn't do anything wrong, you did all wrong, are projections. And we sometimes as caregivers already feel guilty, right? That guilt is a situation of our self-esteem. Excuse me, I'm going to tell you how to get to that too. So everything today, high conflict relationships and caregiving, is predicated on a psychological theory. I don't want to be anecdotal to you. I wanted you to know that besides for being in the caregiver space for 25 years, I'm also a psychologist. And so psychology's evolved. And the beauty of our evolution is that we have started finding out much, much more about our minds. And so I'm going to make you pretty much aware that if you're in a high conflict situation, I need to make you understand, if you will, or help you understand the attachment theory. Now, the attachment theory, okay, is that we are born in this world, and our first 8 years of our life is either really growing and maturing because we have a loving caregiver or somebody who can kind of gives us fair, consistent, available reflection. Somebody allows us to feel safe in this world, or we didn't. Now, that's called attachment theory. Now, why do we call attachment theory? It's how well we were able to attach between 0 and 10 years old. So the theory is, okay, that if you have high, let me just paraphrase all this. There's 3 types of attachment styles, okay? There's secure. That's if you came from that leave it to beaver family, not many of us did. There's avoidant, which is what myself and my therapist work with. I'm avoidant. I came from a challenging household. Or there's anxious attachment styles. We all have attachment issues, all of us. It's like learning, okay? It's all about, there's a learning kind of thing here where we sit, some outliers may be Asperger's, it may be learning, dyslexia, it may be ADHD or that, but all of us have some learning spectrum, but also we all have an attachment spectrum. And why do I do this clinical thing for caregivers? Well, because not everybody is psychopathologically sick. Not everybody is, but we all, even you, come from the world of complex PTSD. What is that? That's childhood PTSD. That means that in childhood, all of us had ups and downs, right? I knew my parents, gosh, they probably had the best intentions in the world, but they raised me according to Dr. Spock. I don't know if any of you read Dr. Spock, but as a psychologist, I can tell you he should be locked up. I mean, nothing he did was really helpful for a healthy future. So we all have what's called childhood PTSD. That doesn't mean much. It means that we had too many timeouts, that maybe people thought that children should be seen and not heard. Maybe our feelings were discounted. Maybe we were at the dinner table, nobody listened to us. These are innocent things that happen, innocent kind of abuses, but they mount up and they're called complex PTSD. On the attachment scale, all of us have some measure of this. Don't get worried about all that. But none of us had the leave it to beaver perfect thing. Now, the toxic personality, okay, that person that I, as a clinician, would diagnose, which is sicker than others, I'll say. Not necessarily like you or me. I have the avoidance style. My friend has an anxious style. Some have a secure style. There is groups of people I call the toxic personality that have 5 indicators or greater in the world of personality disorders. And they are people that will be huge attention seekers, jealous beyond belief. They'll totally be upset if you're occupied with somebody else because they want your time. They will control you because they're out of control in their mind. And as we say in psychology, when you're out of control in your mind, you start controlling your environment. If you ever watch Saturday Night Live, they're Debbie Downers. So when you go to them, you can expect that sort of darker sort of interpretation of life. They oscillate between victim and martyr. They don't really have any other speed, like, oh my gosh, what's happened to me, or look what I did for you, but nothing in the middle. And I have a daughter. I think Glenda knows I'm an AARP daddy, but she's taught me all about the girls in her class. And I'll say that the toxic individual is a drama magnet, that they're just people that stay in the middle and want all the attention, which drains you as a caregiver, right? There are people who criticize you. That's the toxic personality. So back to the continuum. If all of us are on the continuum, and let's say I'm avoidant, somebody's anxious, and somebody's secure, those with 5 indicators or greater, okay, are sicker than others. What does that mean? Not sicker in any way. It means they had a much more difficult childhood. It means that their mom or dad did not really allow them to feel safe in this world. We all go through what we call a narcissistic stage of development, all of us. Sigmund Freud called it narcissistic stages between 4 and 6 years old. However, if you don't have a caregiver that gives you safety, it's reflects the world back to you in a loving manner. That if you're crying your eyes out, it's not holding you, not telling you the world is safe, you can get stuck here. And it does become what we call kind of cluster B. And so what happens in a relationship, it happens a lot in orphanages. It happens a lot, if you don't have a primary caregiver in the first 4 to 7 years of your life. It happens when, and this is bad parenting basically, and some people can't avoid it, like in orphanages, you create some sort of pathological frozen time and you become sicker than others. So in my world, in DSM-5, and I say all this to qualify this because I don't want you all running out and diagnosing your loved one. This is why I do this. I don't want you there. Only 1 out of 8 people, okay, the American Psychological Association says, has a diagnosable relationship disorder. Now, let's concentrate only on cluster B. Okay, that's the narcissist, that's the borderline antisocial. These are people with 5 indicators or greater, and you can't reach them. They don't have self-awareness. I'm going to say to you, they literally are fixed mindset. They can't really learn. It's not their fault. They have a mental health disorder. Okay, I would diagnose, it takes a long time, with either histrionic, narcissist, borderline, or antisocial. Listen, you may not even know what I'm saying. It could all sound psychobabble to you. But if you go back to the news when you saw Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, okay, that trial was all about somebody who had a cluster B, somebody who was diagnosed with histrionic and was with borderline. What does that mean? Well, they had a fixed mindset. They couldn't grow. We call them, cluster Bs because they had a very damaging childhood, a lot of complex PTSD. Now, they do grow up. It may be our mom, it may be our dad, it may be somebody we're taking care of, but they become what I call, energy vampires. How's that? That's a hard word to say. But why, as I say that? Well, caregiving is already tough. We have to worry about our mind, our body, and spirit, and I'm going to talk to you about it. We have to, why we call this the Take Your Oxygen First series. It's after a book I wrote, and I'll get more into it later. We have to literally have healthy sort of selves to be able to take care of our loved one, enough energy. But one of the antidotes, and we'll get to it, is dealing with that toxic relationship within ourselves. But if we're not whole, and this person I've just described with 5 indicators usually or greater, okay, the energy vampire starts working on you, you're going to lose your energy, okay? You're going to have your energy robbed, your soul's kind of gone. And I'm writing a book on this. Obviously, you can see probably too much information. But as I look at the book, there's a chapter I say that values, hear me out, values are the garlic and the crucifix to the energy vampire. Okay? It's a little bit of a play on words with movies. Values. So what I want to talk to today is about your values and about how you can get out of being trapped in this whole world by somebody you may be taking care of, or maybe kind of your patient who's an energy vampire. So I don't know if you learned how to do the emoticons or anything like that. Are you still in the right place? Now, Glenda, are you in the right place? Are you relating to it? I bet you. This is hitting us all. Why is it hit us all? Here's the reason why, and I asked Glenda this because here's the thing. If 1 out of 8 in the world of psychology has what we call an attachment disorder, 1 out of 8, that you can do the numbers. I don't know. I'm not that good, but it's about 30 million people in America alone. And the APA will say that they touch almost 200 million people. Now, why I created a charity and a foundation around this, I'll tell you about later. I'm not here to advertise. It's a charity, so you can always get involved. It's called TAR Network, Toxic Abusive Relationship Network, TAR Network. If you go to Instagram, it's fabulous. They've got animation about this. But if 1 out of 8 people have an attachment disorder, they touch almost 200 million collateral damage. People say, oh, you got to be kidding. I said, no, the attachment disorder can be in men, women, relationships. It can be in work sites at WellMed. I know Glenda knows I'm the chief compassion officer at WellMed. That means I go into clinics and help them be healthy and help them get high performing. But sometimes I find that we have an energy vampire, working with us, a fixed mindset person, and they touch 20 people in that clinic, and they may be bullying and criticizing, putting people down. So the APA says that almost 200 million people in America alone gets that way. You may have been raised by a mom, dad that was like this. You may, be in a work site that's like this. You may be in a caregiving relationship, which we're talking about today. You may be in a relationship with somebody else. So how do you identify? Are you in a high conflict relationship? Well, I gave you all the sort of factors if you're walking on eggshells, if you're in the right spot, right? But the MO of this person is pretty clear. And it's a clinical thing. Okay. It's a clinical thing. It's diagnosable. It's what I said before. We call it a cluster B, which is a toxic individual, but they can't really help it. So when I said about 4 agreements, okay, you can't take this personal. I know it hurts getting episodic rage, being criticized, being bullied. It hurts because you're thinking like this is like a normal level playing field. I'm here to say it's not, that they may be fixed at a 4 to 8-year-old level, never came out of that sort of attachment phase. And they are not doing it to get back at you. They really don't have the ability to gain accountability and empathy, and they're quite transactional. So in relationships, let me just forget the caregiving relationship for a moment. In a just a male female or male male or female male, whatever it is you deal with as partners, there's a love bombing stage where you meet somebody and they'll just continually bomb you and they'll just love you. It's a relationship thing, and they'll try to get you into their web, and they'll be, give you flattery and compliments. You're the greatest thing since sliced bread, or you're my soulmate. And within a month, you're just ready to go, rock and roll. I don't know if anybody's following stories in the news, but the Vallow, the recent murder, that 2 children, and obviously of the husband of Chad, it's just been out there. He just got convicted for first-degree murder. They got married very quickly, and they went into the love bombing phase very quickly, and then his whole life got changed, and he went ahead and did the most dastardly, heinous things in the world. But the love bombing connected him. He got wooed. It's almost like hypnosis. And what happens is, the person that you're with, and this happens in a relationship and caregiving as well, if you're not aware of what things I'm saying, you get gaslit. What's gaslighting? Well, we get gaslit all the time. We get gaslit in TV commercials. We get gaslit politically. We get gaslit, believe it or not, even in our parenting relationships. Gaslighting is really, I always say it's about 10% true and 90% not so true. So what a toxic person can do with you, is they can project it's your fault. They can play word salad. They can say it never happened, things like that. They can, really kind of twist you up, and they'll tell you things and you'll start believing it. That's why I said, I don't want you to feel guilty. It's all projections. It's ways to control you. And the toxic individual can do that. So here's how you can figure out who is kind of in a high conflict relationship. Does the person you're caring for have empathy? Think about it. Do they have empathy? Can they slip inside your shoes? And empathy basically is the power of understanding and imaginatively entering into another person's feelings. Listen, if your loved one can't do this, they're not doing it to get back at you. They literally can't do it. They're frozen at 4 to 8, probably. It's a fixed mindset. Okay. They can't get into your situation as a caregiver. They can't get into your feelings. They can't get into your motives. They're literally kind of frozen. So in some ways, I always say this, it's like a Broadway play, and they're the only ones on stage and everybody else is ushers. So here's the deal. If you're taking care of a loved one, now again, there's notwithstanding, I'll get to questions and answers here, notwithstanding neurological issues and the accountability with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or Lewy body, but even then, your loved one well enough, okay? You do. I mean, I wrote a book on it, and I watched Lisa and her mom and the decompensation over time with Alzheimer's, but she knew her mom in the way that her mom would sometimes be either have no memory or be accountable. If your loved one cannot be accountable and always only gives you excuses and just says, nothing's my fault, you're always the problem, then probably you have this. So first things first, as a caregiver, I'm going to ask you, do you hold, and I'm going to get to yourself because this is about our first toxic relationship with ourselves. Do you hold others accountable? Do you hold yourself accountable? When I say hold ourselves, are you your own personal coach? Do you take care of your mind, your body, spirit? You hold yourself accountable as a caregiver for your health and wellness. And if not, you're probably going to be very susceptible, okay, to the bullying, to the victimization. Okay, high conflict people, then, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not understanding what I'm saying now. I'll get to questions and answers, boundaries. High conflict people will always project. You can always tell where they're coming from because they'll project their own character defects onto you. So if they really say that, you're a bully, probably they're the bully and they get it or understand it enough. They project it. They can't deal with it inside. So understand high conflict people will not take ownership of anything. High conflict people will not have empathy, and high conflict people will always say you're wrong. But one other thing about high conflict people, and again, this is whether you're taking care of a loved one or this is people in your ecosphere around life. The difference between them and I'll call semi-healthy, half neurotic, because I'm one of those half neurotic people, right? I see my therapist. I think I'm flawed. I'm only a human being, not a human doing. Like when my daughter says, "Oh, how dumb am I?" I said, "No, how human am I? We're just humans. We're just kind of getting through the suffering of life." But this person, the high conflict person, the fixed mindset person, is in a transactional relationship with you. Okay, so what they basically see is that by doing something with you, I'm going to get something back. It's like bartering. And they need adoration. They need something back. They need you to sacrifice things almost at the altar. Whereas you may be into this word called love, and you think that love is just being there for somebody. So I'm going to do always, as I always do, give you emotional regulating sort of strategies like breath work at the end. And I'm going to leave plenty of time for questions and answers because I think this is a complicated topic. It's more clinical, but I'm trying to make it as understandable. That's why our foundation calls all of this, we call TAR, stickiness. Okay. All TAR, toxic abusive relationships. I don't need you to be a psychologist like me. I don't need you to go out and diagnose your loved one as being narcissistic or histrionic or antisocial. I just need you to understand that you may be tarred and feathered. You may be in a toxic abusive relationship with the person you're caring for. Okay. So I'm going to say now, here is the greatest strategy you could possibly do. All of that is hit home for you. If you understand any of that in terms of being in a bullying relationship, somebody criticizes, somebody doesn't get it, somebody doesn't have a lot of empathy for what you're saying, somebody who really, pushes on you and becomes the victim of the martyr, then you're probably in a high conflict, toxic situation. And there's a couple of ways out. One is, I'll get to it. One is healing is your greatest revenge here, y'all. It really is. Your own healing, looking in the mirror and realizing that I'm going to need a lot of energy to take care in a modified contact way. You know what I do with people who are going through this in a love relationship, an intimate relationship with somebody? I say, if you don't have a child with one, or if you're not taking care of a person in a chronic terminal acute illness, like you as a caregiver, you got to have no contact. No, you didn't create the situation. This is what I tell people, not like us as caregivers. You didn't create the situation. It's tragic. I'm a therapist. I can't change it. So you got to go get away, take care of yourself and heal your life and have no contact. But we don't have that luxury, right? As caregivers, we have to have what's called modified contact. And so I think, and I'm going to teach it now, and maybe next month, if I'm invited back, I'll do another thing on recovery. The greatest thing you can do with your loved one, if you're in a high conflict relationship, is become a gray rock. Now look at this slide. If you've got actual eyes on this slide, I need you to become one of these rocks. I need you not to stand out. I need you not to throw bait. I need you not to stir up issues. I need you not to jump into what I call the tar pit, toxic abuse relationship. These particular people love drama. They love pulling you in. They love, again, when I say love, it sounds almost like they're conscious of it. They're really not conscious of it. Because of the attachment disorder, they need the drama. They need to create chaos. They need to draw you in. Okay, I want to have compassion for how they got this way, but I want to have compassion for you. Okay, and understand that your healing is critical, and that what gray rocking is, it's modified contact. Okay, it means you can't jump in and expect them to be what you want them to be. You want them to be a loving family member, right? You want them to meet you halfway. You want to be able to be requited and say, I'm doing all this. I'm getting to the doctors. I'm getting you food. I'm taking care of housing. I'm doing everything I can. But you can't really meet me halfway. Well, guess what? They cannot. So I'll say this, modified contact is kind of gray rocking. What I need you to understand is that they'll cling. They'll make you feel guilty. Okay, they'll ask for adoration. I need you to be this. Go back here, one of these. I need you to have boundaries and understand. I need you to be straight up and sort of understand here that this is harming you. Okay, the caregivers not taking care of themselves, not understanding what I'm saying, hanging in this side of bullying, criticize. This changes your body. That your cortisol levels as a caregiver are going to be off the roof. Your inflammation in the sort of appearance and ecosphere of a fixed mindset person, a toxic person, is going to be off the scope. There's a very good book I'd love you to get. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. I'm very grateful and privileged to be on the Polyvagal Advisory Board. And Dr. Bessel van der Kolk wrote that. And his name is Bessel, Bessel, Vander, Vanderkolk. He's from Holland. He's a psychiatrist. But The Body Keeps the Score is a great book for caregivers to read because it could be harming you medically. Your mind can say you can do things. Okay, I'm a hypnotherapist, so I know the mind can do anything. You can deny, like I said, project. But the body keeps the score. So if you're in a relationship, you're not gray rocking, you're not taking the boundaries, you're not standing firm, you keep jumping into the tar pit, okay? You have to understand you desperately need to have boundaries, keep your distance, and be very, very clear. Remember when I started this thing, getting Miguel Ruiz, the 4 agreements? You need to be impeccable with your word. 2 ways. Impeccable with your word and keep it sparing because I want you to be a gray rock, but impeccable word with yourself. Don't start telling yourself you're at fault. Don't start telling yourself you're a bad person. Don't start telling yourself that. You're impeccable with your word is the way you speak to yourself. So a gray rocking requires you to have boundaries. Now, Brene Brown is fabulous with boundaries, but setting boundaries doesn't make you mean, okay? It just makes you safe. Setting boundaries is setting limits, is setting expectations. It's being nice to yourself. Setting boundaries and being gray rocking, is protecting your feelings and your thoughts. Because you're walking a difficult line. Needless to say, we are. We always do in life, okay? This isn't just normally with caregiving. We see toxic individuals. Like I said, 1 out of 8 people. I can see them outside, walking downstairs in my place. I can see them in our clinics. They're 1 out of 8 people, right? Doesn't mean they have depression or bipolar or schizophrenia at all. It's a personality issue. It was a parenting issue. So I find them anywhere. And if you go to tarnetwork.org, you'll see men, women, caregiving, work sites, teens and tweens, because the attachment is done by 10 years old. So you're walking a difficult line if you're caring for a loved one who is like this. All right. I don't want you to keep giving into everything. I need you to understand that they don't understand all these things I'm saying to you. They don't understand. I need you to realize that they are taking your energy. I need you to realize, okay, that they thrive on that. And I need you to take boundaries and understand them. It's not your job to save the high conflict individual. It's your job to be very, very judicious in terms of getting people all around you, making sure your whole family, which is long distance caregivers, is showing up, and making sure you have a good therapist, a good physician, taking care of your mind and body and spirit. It is up to you to do the things you need to do for yourself while you're that gray rock, while you're taking care of somebody. It's vital for you to understand that you have to show up for yourself. Okay. what's going to happen too, and people say this, and I'm trying to get in front of it, is that the high conflict person also is going to really, it's almost, we call them flying monkeys. They're going to create flying monkeys. They're going to tell people how bad you are. You're probably the worst caregiver in the world, right? And all this because they need to triangulate and they need not to be taking accountability. So they need to smear, and they'll do that. They don't do it consciously. They do it because they have to. So listen, leaving it is not an option for a caregiver. Okay, it's never easy in a male-female relationship or partnership or male-male or female, whatever, again, your partnership or your relationship is with somebody in life. As a caregiver, I need you to start quarterbacking this situation properly. A, I need you to be boundary. B, I need you to start learning what it's like to be a gray rock. And C, I need you to take care of yourself and get all the long distance caregivers and start giving them assignments. Go to the area agency on aging, give them assignments. Get your boundaries correct, pull in people. You cannot do it all, but I want you to start learning self-healing techniques, and I'll do it later. I want you today, if you're in a high conflict relationship with a loved one, to start taking your oxygen first. Okay, when I named that book, when Lisa and I wrote it, it was because exactly this, that you have 19 seconds of useful consciousness. And if you don't take that oxygen first in that air, God forbid it goes down, many survive. But if you haven't taken it, both of you will perish. And I will say, if you're in a high conflict relationship and you're not taking your oxygen first, and you're not with your good therapist, or you're not going to Caregiver SOS if you're in Texas, or a senior center, or with groups, if you're not developing healthy relationships with friends at churches, at temples, at synagogues, at ashrams, then you're not doing yourself any favors. So at WellMed, we created a website, okay, for family caregivers and for our employees. And you can start here, okay, esrt.wellmedcharitablefoundation.org. This is all put on by the Teleconnection Charitable Foundation. You can come there and sign up for affirmations. It'll keep you honest, okay? It'll keep you as a personal coach. You can go to Psychology Today. It's very good search engine. I write for that. And if you go to the front page of Psychology Today and put your zip code in, out will pop 5 or 6 people that may be very good in caregiving or geriatric care, or will understand you well. I need you to find a safe place. If you have a Medicare Advantage plan or you have insurance, they'll take insurance, okay? Also, there's free groups out there called coda.org or Codependency Anonymous. A lot of times us have this codependency, which our self-esteem gets people in places and things, and God help us, we're always waiting for somebody to pat us on the back, like I said. This internal sort of motivation, that river I said that runs through you, can be all started here at ESRT.Wellmed Charitable Foundation. I'm going to do some breath work because I need you to understand the breath work is critical. So let's do something here. Let me talk to you about emotional regulation. If you're in a relationship or not, even if you're not in a relationship like this, resilience and the ability to parent ourselves or reparent ourselves is critical. Okay. The only way to do that is 2 ways as a psychologist, and I'm trauma informed. That means to take care of yourself through emotional regulation. That's like I'm going to do with you now with breath work or Pilates or yoga, or going outside and walking or crocheting, or find what calms your nervous system down. And then doing this with people around you, it creates self-awareness. And self-awareness allows us to be proactive instead of reactive. So my first work 30 years ago as a trauma therapist with policemen, firemen, emergency medical technicians. These are first responders. Guess what I think caregivers are? I think we're all family first responders. So your clinical makeup is the same as a cop and a fireman. You're always running into a burning home. Others may be running out. If you're in a high conflict relationship, I need you to recruit others. I need you not to be the only answer. But why this all works is it's called vagus nerve work, is that as a caregiver, we have to befriend our neurological system. We have to create safety in the face of these high conflict relationships. You need to excuse yourself, okay? You need to go out and do something, whether it is walking around your house, whether it is like going to a Pilates or yoga, whether it is sitting with a friend or something and finding some space away from that fixed mindset person you're caring for. I use breath work because I think breath work is the most powerful way for us to reset our neurological system. Cops use it before they go into a SWAT situation. Instead of being reactive, and they've got guns and they got guns pointed at them, they become proactive. So all of this is called vagus nerve work. And if you're in a high conflict situation, I need you to start creating safety by understanding this. Creating safety is understanding your vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, by the way, goes from the cortex of your brain to your healing organs into your gut. You can calm it down in a number of ways. I want you to start seeing it. Like I said, it could be walking, could be Pilates, these are all ways we emotionally regulate. Now, you can't get well, this is true, in the environment that made you sick. So I need you to find outside if you can. And that's also by getting long distance caregivers and other people involved. I need you to find support groups. I need you to get out and not isolate. I need you to find somebody who can give you an hour or two respite with your loved one. Okay. Because the key to getting well, especially when you're in a fixed mindset, is emotional regulation and healthy co-regulation. So the beauty is, and I think Dr. Gabor Mate said this, and it was really cool, and you can look him up. He says, we get sick in relationships. It usually is the attachment issue. It's usually childhood, but we also heal through healthy relationships. So understand that healthy relationships, people meet you halfway, may not be with your loved one, you may not be with your caree, really start healing you. So I'm going to do some breath work, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Glenda because I want to take your questions here. I don't want to leave you hanging. I think it's complicated, but it's not. The answer is simple. It's 101. How do I emotionally regulate in the face of a person who has no empathy, no accountability, maybe criticizing and bullying me? And how do I find healthy people around me during this process? And as a caregiver, both have to be answered if you want to get well. So emotional regulation, as I said, can be done with Pilates, yoga, things that really blow your hair back, but calm your neurosystem down. What we call in trauma work, earthing techniques, grounding techniques. I'm going to do breath work with you right now because I think this is the best way, easiest way for you as a caregiver to do things. It's also what I use at WellMed for our doctors or social workers or nurses. I'd love for you to learn it really and use it as much as you can. I'm going to show you how to do it. You don't have to do it. You can also do other grounding techniques. I'm not going to take your breath if you don't want it. Other techniques I'd like you to use. It takes about 80 seconds. I'm going to do two things here. A little chair yoga, because your body is something you can control. And when you're feeling out of kilter, you can do some chair yoga, or you can do breath work. You can't do this enough. You don't need me to be your therapist. You can be your own trauma therapist, if you will. Okay. But I'm going to teach you today this. Any grounding technique. And again, if you don't want to do the breath work, grounding techniques could be gratitude journaling. Guess what? Praying is a grounding technique. Interesting, right? It doesn't matter if it's Jesus, Moses, Buddha, Allah, but prayer is a neuroregulator. Okay. Going to a safe place, if you don't want to do the breath work, where you once were, only you know what that place was, touching it, feeling it, and smelling it. That is also a neuroregulator. Being silent, walking away, getting sun, being outside for 80 seconds and just chilling your neurosystem down is a grounding technique. So I'm going to teach you breath work though, real quick, and then I'm going to take your questions. I'm also going to say to you that after this work, this seminar, this workshop that we're doing, go to YouTube, okay, and put DRWIL. You see on the bottom, Andrew Weil, he's a doctor. He's an integrative medicine physician at the University of Arizona. I'm very fortunate. Our charity is setting up a complex post-traumatic stress disorder unit here in Fort Lauderdale, and we're looking to get Dr. Wiles, our medical director for integrative medicine. We would be so blessed because he's so good. But he also has a website, drweil.com. Go to it. Andy's going to teach you nutrition, he'll teach you food, but he does breath work. If you go to YouTube as well and put 478, out will pop Andy. Takes you less than 2 minutes. You can shift in a fixed mindset situation, a toxic situation, your whole chemistry in less than 80 seconds. Here's how you do it. Many of you have seen me before. Some have not. I do this with cops and firemen. Again, you become more proactive, less reactive. If you have to be a gray rock, this is what you do when you want to be a gray rock instead of react in the tar pit. Okay, I'm gonna do a little chair yoga, but here's how you do 478. I'm gonna ask you to breathe in through your nostrils when I ask you to close your eyes for 4 seconds, like this. I want you to keep it in your mind for up to 7 seconds. You can picture peace or butterflies or daffodils or rainbows or any guided image, or just stay silent for 7 seconds. You have to listen to my voice now, but later it'll be yours. But when you exhale, that's the secret sauce of breath work. I want you to exhale loudly, and I want you to exhale for twice as long as your inhalation, okay? Which is 8 seconds. So you exhale like this. That's what triggers your vagus nerve. Remember, it goes from the cortex of your brain through your healing organs into your gut. It's a miracle. Only humans can do this, and we can shift the chemistry of our body in less than 80 seconds. And if you're in a high conflict situation, you will have to. So let's do some breath work. First, let's kick off with chair yoga. If you want to do something else, it's a grounding technique. I've already offered you an alternative, but let's do it together, if you will. So if you will, close your eyes. Okay, just close your eyes, whatever you choose to do. It's very comforting. You just listen to my voice. Unfortunately, it's my voice now. You get Andy's voice on YouTube. Hopefully it'll be yours. So with your eyes closed, take your feet, if you have shoes on, put them on the ground and feel the floor through your shoes. If you're barefooted, feel the floor through your feet if you're at home. And with your body upright, sitting in your chair, with respect for your body, let's first do a little chair yoga and then break into 4, 7, 8, and then I'll take questions. Okay, here's how we do chair yoga. Without lifting your shoulders, but taking your left ear, slowly, slowly, slowly go towards your left shoulder. And if you have pain, don't push past it. Please don't push past the pain, but feel the stretch on the right-hand side of your neck. Feel the stretch on your left-hand side. It's pretty cool, right? Getting in touch with your body as a caregiver. Now lift your head up with looking straight ahead with your eyes closed still, please. Take your right ear and go slowly towards your right shoulder without lifting your shoulder up. Don't push past pain, please. Just keep it. Just feel the stretch on your left-hand side and feel the stretch on your right-hand side. Then bring your head up again, looking forward with your eyes closed. Take your chin and move it towards your chest slowly, very slowly. Don't push past pain. Feel the stretch in the back of your neck. Now feel the stretch in the front. Now lift your head up, looking straight ahead with your eyes closed. Last time on chair yoga, take your head, move it backwards towards the middle of your back, not raising your shoulders. And don't push past pain, please. And feel the stretch on your throat and feel the stretch in the back of your neck. And this is a grounding technique as well. Now look forward with your eyes closed and let's do 4, 7, 8, simply 4 times. Okay, breathe in now through your nostrils for 4 seconds. Keep it, swish it around for up to 7 seconds. Blow out with passion for 8. Breathe in the calmness again for 4 seconds. Keep it, swish it for 7. Blow out the stress for 8. Breathe in the calmness again for 4 seconds. Keep it, swish it for 7. Now, blow out with gusto for 8. Last time, breathe in the calmness for 4 seconds. Keep it, swish it for 7. Now, just blow out all the anxiety you might be feeling for 8 seconds. With your eyes closed, feet on the ground, go inside your body. You're an amazing family caregiver. It's a miraculous intervention, and you have a miraculous body because you just shifted all the chemistry of your body. Literally in less than 80 seconds, you were able to produce a hormone called oxytocin, connects your neurotransmitters. It really calms your healing organs. It also reduces inflammation and allows you to feel better in the moment. And if you're with a fixed mindset person, you need to excuse yourself at any given time for 80 seconds and do this. Now, when you're ready, open your eyes, come back to our teleconnection meeting and realize that what you have done, and this is tough for caregivers, is an act of self-compassion. A moment of self-compassion can change your day. And a string of moments like this can literally, as a caregiver, change the course of your life. So, as we say in our book, take your oxygen first. Be the change you want to see in others. If you're in a relationship with a high conflict situation, or even if you're not, okay, when you do this emotional regulation and you hang around healthy people, better things are coming. They really are. So keep calm. Keep calm and just breathe.
Good advice, Dr. Jamie, and I always love the 478. It's so good. Makes me feel better.
Thank you.
Anyone have a question or a comment right now for Dr. Jamie? And if you have dialed in on your telephone, you can press *6 and that will unmute the phone and I'll be able to call on you.
And feel
Questions,
free. If
comments?
anybody's asking a question, everybody else is thinking it. So no question is
Exactly.
crazy. Feel free.
Exactly. Let's see here. Nobody's got their hand up. The chat box is open if you're more comfortable.
And I can
Right.
tell you too, you can use the chat box, but understand this, y'all. It's important, and I want to be very straight up with you on this. So parenting is tough. I know it. I have a daughter. She's a therapist. I'm sure I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. The first relationship, where unfortunately was kind of off and on, was with our own parents. They didn't really know. My parents didn't know. They got, as I said, they did Dr. Spock, and he didn't know. So we give ourselves grace and compassion. The second toxic relationship we have is with ourselves. So if we're not taking care of our mind, our body, spirit, we're not going to support groups. If you're in Texas, Caregiver SOS, if you're in Florida or around the country, any sort of group that you can actually get with other people, understand that that's very, very vital. Our relationship is we have to put the ring on our finger first, mind, body, and spirit, and take care of ourselves and nurture ourselves before taking care of our loved one. Because that first, being toxic with ourselves doesn't help. Then if you're in a fixed mindset place, you need to have boundaries and you need to go do these things. So I know it's a lot to take in. I'm more than happy to continue taking questions later on. You can go to www, and I'm not sure you can do this, Glenda, but it's www.tarnetwork, tarnetwork.org. You can go to the caregiver section there, and literally we have a lot of content written by my colleague and myself about high conflict situations in caregiving. And more than happy you can reach out. And by the way, I'll say this too. If you go to that website on Wednesday evenings, we have what's called TARANON, Toxic Abusive Relationship Anonymous. And you're welcome to come to support meetings. It starts at 6:00 on Eastern Daylight Time. And it's a 1-hour meeting. And it's for people who either have loved ones, moms and dads, who are maybe that cluster B, that toxic, or taking care of loved ones. It's a modified contact group. It's Wednesday, but go to TARNON on our website, or tarnon.org. It's its own website. They're free. They're accessible, and we're happy to have you there. Understand, again, this is very much a critical issue, and there are strategies to dealing with high conflict relationships. So I'll go to tarnetwork.org, TARNON. You can also tell us your TAR Tale. Our organization is TAR Tale, TARTALE.org. And we have incredible stories from around the world for 2.5 years of people going through high conflict situation. There's a caregiver section as well. So realize that this is challenging, and it's pretty much, I think, the worst public health disaster out there is the attachment disorder. You're not alone. Reach out. And again, the key is that your emotional regulation and co-regulation, and be kind to yourself. So Glenda, I'm happy to get people through that website, or certainly come back next month if you want to do the recovery program.
Right. I put the TAR network and other resources you mentioned, Dr. Jamie, in the chat box, so everybody has those. Thank you for filling out the survey that popped up. We really do appreciate your feedback. So thank you for taking the moment to do that. We have a couple of minutes left. Anyone have a question or a comment or want to talk about your particular situation? You're welcome to do so.
There's a comment in the chat.
Yes. Victoria says, I'm super impressed with all the literature you mentioned. Really good information. Thank you so much. Somebody had their hand up, but it went back down. If you want to put it up again, I didn't catch the name attached to that.
Victoria, we saw this as the worst public health disaster. When I wrote the book, Take Your Oxygen First, in 2006, it was more the codependency model, but the trauma model has evolved, and we start seeing that relationships like this create complex trauma. And so we had to create a lot of services at our foundation 4 years ago. So come aboard. I don't take any money from it. I just give back, but it's everywhere. So thank you very much, Victoria, for that.
Right. And Dr. Jamie has a website if you'd like to look him up there. It's www.drjamie.com. I'll also put that over here in the chat box for you, so you can make note of that.
Thank you. And come back to caregiver teleconnection. Be kind to yourselves. Education is the beginning, but what we do in psychology, and then I'll end here, is 3 things: awareness, transformation, and self-love. And what you can do with WellMed Charitable Foundation or Caregiver Teleconnection is become aware. And what you can do with TAR Network is to become aware. And once you're aware, you're no longer naive. Find transformation. It comes through a lot of ways. Ar-Anon is one. Listen, Jesus, Moses, Buddha, Allah, they're transformative paths. NA, AA, OA, you name it, CODA, transformational. But once you do the awareness and transformation part, find the self-love. That's the byproduct. And that self-love hopefully will flow over your loved one. Remember the boundaries, remember the gray rock, and hopefully I'll see you next month. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you, Glenda.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jamie.
Minerva.
Appreciate you so much. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you've gotten a lot out of the presentation. I always do, so I go right along. So look at the calendar for June. It's jam-packed. You can find that on the Caregiver Teleconnection website. If you can't get to that, you can call our customer service representative, otherwise known as Minerva, and her number is toll-free at 866-390-6491, and she'll be happy to help you. Looking forward to seeing you on future sessions. Look us up on YouTube and on the Caregiver Teleconnection website for our podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been my pleasure. Bye-bye.
Mine as well. Bye-bye.